Hey everybody, it's time for another Rahdo Rules Run Through with Ryan, and today we've got Darkest Doom. Ryan, save us!
Oh no, the bad guys are about to destroy everything. Quick! Become the bad guy! Hi, it's Ryan from Knights Around a Table. Here's how you play Darkest Doom. You and your friends play one of 4 Guardians, a sort of secret police force charged with protecting the region of Beetle. You'll travel the land fighting creatures and each other, completing quests, using weapons and traps to get ahead, and gaining fame that will help you ally with one of the 4 citadels, potentially recruiting acolytes to help you accomplish your goals. And what are those goals? Well, Darkest Doom has a number of different win and lose conditions, and in order to make sense of them, you have to understand a little of the backstory and lore of the game. The bad guys that all of you think are good guys are called the Order. One thing the 4 Guardians did to supposedly keep Beetle safe was to imprison the shadow shaman Mosh inside a monolith at the base of the Winter Mountain, because the Guardians were led to believe that Mosh was the bad guy. Really, Mosh was only trying to fight against an old injustice done by the Order, who were trying to keep wild magic under their control. Mosh inadvertently released the Darkest Doom, an evil force that was stripped from him by the 4 Guardians, and Elaine, the High Priestess, and trapped inside her ancient amulet called the Crimson Fate. But now that the amulet was all spooky, it didn't really go with anything, so High Priestess Elaine redirected the darkness up to the moon. Later on, all of the dark power from the moon shot back down to Beetle and corrupted High Priestess Elaine. Chaos broke out in Beetle over a period of 9 days. When Elaine was about to be overcome, she shattered the Crimson Fate. A shard of the amulet struck each Guardian right in the noggin, and its fracturing summoned Supreme Being Aeon, who heard Elaine's prayer and reversed time for 9 days, back to when the bad mojo first escaped from the moon. Well, that's where our game begins, when everyone has to relive that week and a half of chaos. But this time, the 4 Guardians are equipped with fancy new Crimson Fate powers to change the outcome, and they have 9 days to battle the Darkest Doom before it overwhelms the region of Beetle. So to win the game, one of you can become the new High Priest of Beetle by having the most fame points at the end of 9 days. Or you can complete quests to find 3 sigil stones and bring them to the monolith in order to free the Shadow Shaman Mosh. You can travel up Winter Mountain and battle the darkness corrupting the High Priestess Elaine. If you defeat her in combat, you save Elaine and are dubbed the new Knight of the Guardians of Beetle. Everyone loses the game if all of the blood temples and citadels in Beetle are completely corrupted before the 9 days are up. But if the darkness wins, and you've turned heel and become the corrupted leader of the hunt and are fighting for the bad guys, then you alone win the game. These are the 4 Guardians of Beetle you can choose to play as: Sela the Thief, Urien the Warrior, Rowana the Witch, and Tristram the Assassin. Each Guardian has a miniature that starts at one of the 4 blood temples, which acts as home base, where they'll respawn if they get killed, either by creatures or by each other. All of the Guardians have their own player board and starting stats: melee, health, witchcraft, and wisdom. You can increase your stats and search for ancient relics by completing quests. This cube tracks which stat you're working on, and this one indicates what kind of relic you're searching for: an urn, a stone, or a lantern. This track manages your health, and these are the mana petals you'll use to cast spells, which are limited by your health and witchcraft stats, respectively. You'll get a number of action points to spend on your turn. You have a special ability unique to your character and some starting money, along with 2 traps you can set to trip up the other players or creatures. You can ally with the different citadels and recruit acolytes to gain perks, but your temple card may get crowded up with white moths. The game clock lasts 9 days of 2 rounds apiece, a dawn phase and a nightfall phase. This is the daily fame track. Your token will move up and down along the track in response to different things you do. At the end of each round, this track will determine player order going into the next round. The fame you gain or lose here gets reset every day. A roll of the fate die determines player order off the top of the game. At the beginning of every dawn phase, you draw a hand of useful supply cards, equipment, spells, and traps that you pull from these decks according to your wisdom stat, which determines your hand limit. The smarter you are, the more cards you can hold. You also grab a new quest card if you don't already have one. You can only have 1 quest card at a time. From the second round onward, you can even dump your entire hand of cards if you don't like them, and then draw back up to your hand limit. You can also ditch your quest card and draw a different one. But you get dinged 1 daily fame point for scrapping your hand and or your quest card. Then, in player order, everyone takes a turn. You restore your action points to max, and then you have a whole suite of actions you can perform that we'll get into in a sec. Once everyone has taken their turn, the second half of the day begins, the Nightfall phase. Everyone gets to restore their action points to max again, and in the Nightfall phase only, everyone restores their mana petals to max, according to their witchcraft stat. And then, the Darkest Doom gets to take a turn. The Darkest Doom is the game's adversarial presence. It spawns creatures on the map that try to attack you, and it pollutes the citadels and temples on the map with dark filaments, while booby-trapping Beetle with dark pools. To kick off each nighttime phase, you remove today's Heart of the High Priestess token from the round track and put it in this draw bag. Then you turn over 2 Bad Stuff cards, a map card and an event card. The event card has some symbols on it that tell you what naughty stuff is going to show up on the board. The map card tells you where on the board to place those things. Then, any creatures on the board get to do their thing. Generally, they'll be running around attacking players and trying to corrupt citadels and temples. After the Darkest Doom takes a turn, all players in player order get another round to perform their actions. Then, to close out the day, you hand out some rewards according to everyone's standing on the daily fame track. Everyone's daily fame gets reset to 0, but different game effects could modify your standing at this point, like if you've got any white moths plaguing your Temple Rites card. Finally, a new dawn phase begins, and you repeat those steps until either somebody wins or everybody loses due to the darkness overwhelming Beetle. Let's loop back and talk about the Darkest Doom turn that happens every nightfall before we look at what you get to do on your turn, because it'll help contextualize your actions. Darkest Doom. Right, so halfway through the round at nightfall, after everyone has replenished their mana petals and action points, you draw a Darkest Doom event card and a map card. The event card has some symbols on it that determine the obstacles you have to put on the board. Creatures, dark pools, and dark filament affecting citadels or temples. If the card calls for dark pools, you look at all the spots on the map card that have the dark pool symbol. You remove all of the dark pools on the board that haven't been dealt with, and deal out the 6 dark pools to their new locations, face down. The Guardians have to mop up dark pools to keep them from corrupting the temples and citadels. The event card might tell you to place creatures, which the game calls lightless. Creatures have 3 different evolution levels. The basic level 1 Beater, the significantly more serious level 2 Hunter, and the holy cow let's get out of here level 3 Leader. You'll always place level 1 creatures during nightfall. Different game effects may make those creatures evolve to their scarier forms later on. There can only ever be 3 creatures on the map at a time, regardless of their evolution. There's an order to how the bad stuff is generated. You always pick the spot on the map card that's closest to the first player in player order. If multiple things you need to place are equidistant, the first player gets to choose which thing to place first. Then you spin around the map card from that zone going clockwise, placing all the bad stuff. This symbol tells you to place a dark filament token next to one of the 4 citadels that's closest to the first player. If there's a tie, choose the one with the most dark filaments. If both are uncorrupted, the first player gets to choose between them. A certain 5 event cards up the stakes for the game. You set these aside until this icon appears on the 5th day when you shuffle them into the event deck at nightfall. Creature activation. After you generate the bad stuff and resolve the event on the event card, any creatures on the board get to do their thing. Starting with the creature closest to the first player and going clockwise around the map, you draw a token from the drawstring bag. This token will tell you what the creature is targeting, either a citadel, a blood temple, or a guardian. This creature wants to target the Grey Blood Temple at the lower left corner of the board. Each creature moves up to 3 zones, taking the shortest possible route to its target. Creatures avoid other creatures, taking adjacent zones instead. Creatures will attack from a zone adjacent to their target. So if this creature wanted to attack the Grey Blood Temple, it could move 1, 2, 3 zones, which puts it in a zone adjacent to the temple. Yeah, close enough. So it's allowed to attack. Level 1 creatures inflict 1 dark filament, level 2 creatures add 2, and the leader saddles a building with 3. Once a building gets 3 dark filaments on it, it's utterly corrupted. Any excess dark filament tokens get wasted. There are 4 portals on the board that the game calls entries to the Black Lodge that the creatures can use when trying to beeline to their targets. Each zone works like a tunnel to any of the others. When a creature travels through an entry, you have to draw one of these cards and look for any moon symbols on it. There's other stuff on the card, but that only matters when a player uses one of these warp gates. Any moon symbols make this Darkest Doom marker move around the spooky moon a certain number of spaces and cause a mix of good and bad things to happen, which we'll see a little later. Pulling out a Heart of the Priestess token will make a creature evolve one level. And one token has an image of an eclipse on the back, which causes any building next to a dark pool to gain another dark filament token. Then you remove the dark pool. So we've seen how the creatures reach their targets and where they can attack from, but I'm going to hold off on explaining the battle mechanics just until we can see what you get to do on your turn during the Dawn and Nightfall phases. Player actions. So we've seen what the evil game gets to do, fine, but as a Guardian of Beetle, you have a whole suite of actions that you can perform on your turn as much as you like and can afford to, and in any order you want during the Dawn and Nightfall phases of each of the 9 rounds. Here's what's on the menu. You can move around the board, activate a zone, fight someone or something, declare a quest, activate a Citadel activity or a Rite of the Blood Temple, play a relic, or remove a dark pool. Movement. To move around the map, you spend action points from the top left corner of your player board. The different zones represent different terrain types: plains, forests, lakes, and mountains, and entries to the Black Lodge. And there are 2 special zones that are paths to the Winter Mountain, along with this big chunk of fun in the middle of the board, which is the Winter Mountain. Spend 1 action point to move to one adjacent zone. One exception is a fully corrupted Citadel. It'll cost you 2 action points to go there because it's all sticky with evil. Mountains are tough to traverse. They cost 2 action points as well. And the Blood Temple, where you begin the game and respawn if you die, is an exit-only situation. You can leave your Blood Temple, but you can't move into a Blood Temple zone. The only way to return to your Blood Temple is to die. Now, some of the different zone types do something automatically when you enter them. But if a card or some other effect plunks you into a new zone, its automatic action doesn't trigger. And each different zone type has 1 or more unique powers that you can optionally activate for a certain cost. Citadel Activities. You can ally with up to 3 citadels to unlock special perks. To ally, you have to have at least 1 point of daily fame when you move into a citadel zone. If you start your turn in one of the citadels, you have to spend 1 action point to ally. Then you put a little dome in your player color on top of the citadel, and you put the cube associated with that citadel at your current daily fame level. If someone else has already forged that alliance, your daily fame level has to match or beat that citadel's alliance score in order for you to form the alliance. Now, once you're allied with at least 1 citadel, you unlock the 3 Citadel activities on this little card. On any turn where you find yourself in a citadel zone, you get to take as many of these actions as you have allied citadels. You can even repeat actions. Blood Temple Rites. You also have a card that lets you activate 3 different Blood Temple prayers. Allying with the Citadel when you're at 6 or more daily fame, or ending the day with your fame maxed out, earns you an Acolyte for the card, and each Acolyte you have lets you fire off one of these prayers. Anytime you die, you get a white moth on the card that crowds out the Acolyte spots. But one of these prayers lets you use your white moths to relocate dark filaments to other temples to sort of spread the filth around. Cards. You can play as many cards from your hand on your turn as you want or can afford to. Your hand is made up of these supply cards. There's a stack of equipment, spells, and traps. The type of the card is here, and the cost to play the card is here. You have 2 slots where you can gear up with equipment cards, stuff like weapons and armor and items. The cost to equip the card is here, and it wants you to put this many decay markers on it, which limits the number of times you can use that card's ability. Every time you claim the card's benefit, you get rid of a decay marker, and if all the decay markers are gone, well, you discard the equipment. Spell cards come in 3 varieties. Battle spells can only be played in battle, basic spells can only be played outside battle, and ranged spells let you do stuff to players or creatures from many zones away. Your range is defined by your witchcraft stat. Spells cost mana petals to cast them. Remember, your mana petals regrow to max at the beginning of every Nightfall phase. And finally, trap cards let you set traps on the board. More on that in a moment. If bad stuff happens, you may have to draw one or more of these dark contamination cards, which basically take up room in your hand and count against your hand limit without doing anything particularly useful. And they're hard to get rid of, but there are ways to do it, like playing this spell card, which costs a dark contamination card. Traps and dark pools. You can set traps around the board using trap cards to defeat creatures and your opponents. On your turn, you pay a coin to play one of your trap cards, and put it in the number 1 trap slot at the bottom of your player board, or in the number 2 slot if you've already got a trap out. A zone can have 1 trap on it at a maximum. Most of the time, if a creature or another player blunders into a zone with one of your traps on it, the trap triggers, and you do what it says on the card. If a player springs a trap, that player has to draw a dark contamination card and do a check to try to escape. Those cards have these symbols across the top, and you have to roll a certain number of dice to match a certain number of the symbols. As the game progresses, you'll be uncovering these higher and higher trap icons that indicate how many symbols you have to match to disarm the trap. How many dice do you roll? Well, as many as your current wisdom stat allows. So you roll your dice and check it out. You matched 2 of the necessary symbols, but the third is a bust. Luckily, most supply cards in your hand have a certain Crimson Fate icon in the top left corner. You can discard your supply cards to cash those symbols in and change the dice faces to the matching symbols. So if you manage to match all the symbols, you escape the trap. If not, it blows up in your face, and you suffer the penalties on its associated card. Mopping up a dark pool as an action on your turn works similarly to traps. If you pass a trap check and defeat the dark pool, you gain 3 daily fame. If you fail to match all the symbols, you flip the dark pool over and suffer the consequences. Then, pass or fail, remove the pool. Bad Moon Rising. Anytime you roll a moon on the Fate die, the Crimson Fate dice, or when creatures travel through warp tunnels and you draw cards with moons on them, you have to move the scary moon marker on the Darkest Doom track that many spaces, and do the thing on the space you land on as many times as you moved the marker. So if you rolled 2 moons trying to remove a dark pool, you'd move the moon marker 2 spaces, and do the scary moon thing 2 times. Here, here, or here, you can change any die you just rolled to one of the indicated faces. Those ones aren't so bad. Here, the citadel closest to the player who made the moons happen gets a new dark filament token. Same thing happens to the closest blood temple on this space. Here, it's an eclipse. All the citadels and temples adjacent to dark pools gain a dark filament. On this space, the player who made the moon marker move suffers some harm. And this symbol makes the creature closest to the moon marker mover evolve to the next level, if the creature isn't already at maximum scary. If you change a die to a moon by discarding a supply card, well, you don't move the moon marker. Quests. Percival, the Vicar of Beetle, has tasked you with completing quests throughout the game. You get 1 quest card at a time, and they look like a map of Beetle with 1 zone highlighted. If you enter that zone, you complete the quest, and you get to improve the stat you earmarked by 1 point. You also get 1 daily fame, or 3 fame if you declared the quest when it was at least 4 zones away from you by letting everyone know where you were headed. After completing a quest, you roll to find out if you also discover one of 3 ancient relics: the Sigil Stone, the Elder's Urn, or the Spirit's Lantern. Just like the stat you wanted to improve, you'll have earmarked one of the 3 relic types on your player board ahead of time. The symbol in the middle of the quest card tells you what you're shooting for. If there's a plus inside the symbol, you want the number on the fate die to be higher than the number of the stat you just improved by completing the quest. If it's a minus, you want to roll lower than the stat you just improved. You can pay coins to modify fate die results. If you pass the relic check, you get to take the relevant relic token. What do the relics do? Well, if you have 3 sigil stones and you travel to the monolith and pass a trap check, you can free the Shadow Shaman Mosh from the monolith and win the game. Elder's Urns let you equip certain pieces of powerful gear. And you can pay 1 or more Spirit Lanterns to summon the Lake Spectre that you get to embody. Each lantern you spend buffs the Lake Spectre's attack and defense stats, so it's a way to superpower your character for a while. But if you die and respawn at your blood temple, well, the fun's over. The Lake Spectre dissolves into the mist. Only 1 player at a time can control the Lake Spectre. She's not a hotel. When you get a new quest card, you have to choose a new stat to improve and a new relic to search for, and they each have to be different than your last quest. Player combat. As we've seen, if a creature ends up adjacent or on a zone with a player-controlled guardian on it, it's time to fight. Guardians can generally only fight if they move directly into the zone with the player or creature they want to battle. You can't just saunter through a zone with a player or creature on it like doo-doo-doo, don't mind me. As soon as you enter that zone, the fight begins. If you're fighting another player, then before you break out the brass knuckles, you can each launch an opening salvo of battle spells, starting with the player with the highest witchcraft stat and going back and forth until both players tap out. Then, it's time to fight. Each player rolls a number of Crimson Fate dice matching their melee stat. The sword is a hit. The priestess symbol is a hit. This is a hit if you're in the dawn phase. This is a hit if you're in the nightfall phase. This moves the moon marker, and depending on where the marker lands, you may be able to change some of the faces of the dice you just rolled. If you roll a shield, it deflects one of your opponent's hits. And even after the dice are rolled, you can still play certain spell cards to change the results, beginning again with the player with the highest witchcraft stat and going back and forth. Track all the harm that was done. If a player dies by another player's hand, the victor gets 3 fame. If it's just a flesh wound, the defender gets repelled into an adjacent zone. Victor's choice. Death and rebirth. Whenever you die, you lose 3 daily fame, and discard a relic of your choice. You also gain a white moth on your Blood Temple Rites card, which might kick out an acolyte if the card is full. When you regenerate in the next dawn or nightfall phase, your mana petals and action points get refilled to max, as does your health, unless your temple is fully corrupted, in which case you only regain 1 health point when you respawn. Creature combat. When you fight a creature instead of a player, you draw one of these cards to determine its stats. There's a column for creatures at levels 1, 2, and 3. If you were fighting this level 2 hunter, you'd look at this column. The creature doesn't roll any dice. This is how many hits the creature automatically scores against you, and this is how many health points it has. You can cast spells before and after rolling your dice, just like in a player versus player battle. If you're victorious, you gain 3, 4, or 5 daily fame points for defeating a level 1, 2, or 3 creature. Then draw another creature attack card to see what kind of loot you get. So if you defeated a level 2 hunter and you drew this card, you'd get 2 coins. Every creature attack card has some sort of power at the top of the card that only takes effect halfway through the game. Anytime a creature is refought after it survived a battle, you draw a new creature attack card and its health points get refreshed. The damage done to the creature in the last battle doesn't carry over. Special abilities. Each guardian has a special ability. Roanna can spend 2 mana petals to mitigate 1 point of harm whenever she gets hurt. Seela can hurt herself to restore 1 action point per phase. Tristram can ditch his entire hand, as long as he's holding at least 1 card, to gain 2 daily fame. Urien can short himself 1 die in battle in order to get 2 automatic sword hits. All guardians can hold a maximum of 5 coins of destiny and 3 relics. Endgame. There are 4 ways for one player to win the game, and one outcome where all players lose together. If all temples and citadels become fully corrupted with 3 dark filaments apiece, it's game over and nobody wins. If you survive to the end of the 9th day, add your daily fame points to the points corresponding with any citadel alliances you've made, and the player with the highest score becomes the new high priest or priestess and wins the game. Coins of Destiny act as a tiebreaker, and if there's still a tie, whoever's holding the fewest Dark Contamination cards is the winner. If you travel to the Monolith to free Mosh the Shadow Shaman, you have to have 3 Sigil Stones and survive a level 4 trap check to win the game. If you fail the trap check, you suffer 1 harm for every symbol you failed to match with your dice. If you take the other path and travel up to the top of Winter Mountain, you can battle the darkness infecting the High Priestess Elaine. Draw a creature attack card. The High Priestess's health points are equal to the number of heart tokens remaining on the round track, plus this number from the card. And her automatic hits against you are the number of exposed round track spaces plus this number. So as the game progresses, High Priestess Elaine gets simultaneously stronger, yet closer to death. If you're on day 5 or higher, the power at the top of the card activates before the fight begins. Battle Elaine just like you'd battle a creature. If you win the fight, you save Elaine from the darkness infecting her and win the game. If just you, or you and Elaine, both die in the fight, you don't win the game. You get bounced back to your temple, suffering all the usual consequences of death, and Elaine is reborn at the top of Winter Mountain, restored to full strength. The Dark Contamination deck contains a few instances of this special Leader of the Hunt card. If you defeat the Leader of the Hunt in battle, and then reveal this card, you become Leader of the Hunt. This is the point of no return for you, and now Corrupting Beetle is the only way you can win. So, get rid of all your stuff. You've become a being of pure darkness, and you get to roam around the board up to 3 zones on a turn, attacking players and corrupting temples and citadels as if you were one of the Darkest Doom creatures. You get to take your turn in the Dawn and Nightfall phases, but you always go last during the Dawn phase. At the beginning of the Nightfall phase, you draw a Dark Contamination card, and when you're in a fight, for every 2 Dark Contamination cards you discard, you gain an additional sword hit or health point on top of the creature attack card that you draw to determine your stats. If another player kills you while you're the Leader of the Hunt, you're out of the game. But if you manage to help the Darkest Doom corrupt all of the temples and citadels with 3 dark filaments apiece, you win the game as the embodiment of evil. Bots. You can play Darkest Doom with 1 to 4 players, but every game will always include all 4 Guardians. If you have fewer than 4 players at the table, you can control the remaining Guardians using the bot board. Bots don't get figures or player boards. On a bot's turn during the Dawn or Nightfall phases, you flip over a new bot card and look at the row matching the current day on the round track, and the matching color of the bot whose turn it is. The bot gains that many daily fame. If the bot's action has a Citadel icon, the bot tries to ally with that Citadel. And if it's successful, you move its dome off the card and onto the matching Citadel, possibly undoing another player's alliance. Just like you, a bot can gain an Acolyte with 6 or more daily fame, or by maxing out its daily fame. You can set traps for bots and Citadels that make them automatically fail an alliance. If the bot is fighting a human player, you draw a creature attack card and use the icon at the top of the bot card to determine which stats to use. And then you just fight the bot like you'd fight a creature, except you don't activate this power at the top of the card, and you don't go fishing for loot on another card if you defeat the bot like you would if it were a creature. It could also happen that a bot fights another bot. In that case, you draw 2 creature attack cards, and the bots duke it out using stats for whichever creature level is indicated at the top of the bot card. If a creature targets a bot, well, there's no mini on the board for it to move towards. You just draw a creature card and use the matching creature icon from the top of the bot card to determine the bot's battle stats. If there's no creature icon at the top of the bot's card, the creature can't find the bot and the fight doesn't happen. If this symbol shows up, it means that in the matching round, or any later round, the bot will try to purify the High Priestess. The player with the highest daily fame has to survive a level 4 trap check. If that check fails, the bot purifies the priestess and wins the game. With this symbol, the bot tries to free the Shadow Shaman in the matching round or any later round. It's the same deal. The player with the highest daily fame score has to survive a level 4 trap check. And if that player fails, the bot wins the game. And now you're ready to play Darkest Doom.
Thanks, Ryan. I think we've got it. And if you folks would like to learn a little bit more about this game, you can follow the links that are on the screen right now or down in the show notes in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.